Let's go into a little bit more depth with semiotics. Semiotics speaks about signs and how we use them in visual communication. Signs have practical, unambiguous meaning. In semiotics, a sign is something that can be interpreted as having a meaning which is something other than itself. There are different signs. We can divide them into three. We can look at symbols, icons, and indexes. Symbols are more complex and have greater imaginative resonance. A symbol is a figure or character signifying some concept, idea, or emotion beyond its visual appearance. A pictogram or icon stands for an object by resemblance. A pictogram is an ideogram that conveys its meaning through its pictorial resemblance of a physical object. An index is something that can be observed. It is something like where there is smoke, there is fire. Infographics are often used in our concept boards and within our design process. An infographic is a graphic visual representation of information, data, or knowledge intended to present complex information quickly and clearly. Now let's look at typography.
Typography. It's everywhere we look. In the books we read, on the websites we visit, even in everyday life, on street signs, bumper stickers, and product packaging. Simply put, typography is the style or appearance of text. It can also refer to the art of working with text, something you probably do all the time if you create documents or other projects for work, school, or yourself. Typography can be an intimidating subject, but it doesn't have to be. You only need to know a little to make a big difference in the stuff you do every day. So let's get started. First, some common types of fonts and what you need to know about them. Serif fonts have little strokes called serifs attached to the main part of the letter. Because of their classic look, they're a good choice for more traditional projects. They're also common in print publications, like magazines and newspapers. Sans serif fonts don't have that extra stroke, hence the name, which is French for without serif. This style is considered more clean and modern than serif fonts. Also, it tends to be easier to read on computer screens, including smartphones and tablets. Display fonts come in many different styles, like script, black letter, all caps, and just plain fancy. Because of their decorative nature, display fonts are best for small amounts of text. For example, titles and headers, and more graphic-heavy designs. In a way, fonts have their own language. They all have something to say beyond the words on the page. They can come across as casual or neutral, exotic or graphic. That's why it's important to think about your message and pick a font that fits. Some fonts come with extra baggage, like Comic Sans, Curls, Papyrus, and many more. There's nothing particularly wrong with these fonts. They just have a certain reputation for being outdated and overused. If you find yourself tempted by them, think twice and consider using something else. There are many fonts with a similar look and feel that are less likely to detract from your message. When deciding which fonts to use, less is more. It's best to limit yourself to 1 or 2 per project. If you need more contrast, try repeating one of your fonts in a different size, weight, or style. This trick is practically foolproof for creating interesting combinations that work. You've probably heard the saying, opposites attract. Well, the same is true for fonts. Don't be afraid to combine font styles that are different but complementary, like sans serif with serif, short with tall, or decorative with simple. This can be challenging at first, but don't despair. Look to other designs for inspiration, and soon you'll get the hang of it. Maybe you've heard terms like kerning, leading, tracking, and hierarchy. For those with more experience, these concepts are essential for creating professional-looking designs. As a beginner, you don't need to know everything about these terms, just enough to inform your work and help you talk about design with more confidence. Hierarchy is used to guide the reader's eye to whatever is most important. In other words, it shows them where to begin and where to go next, using different levels of emphasis. Establishing hierarchy is simple. Just decide which elements you want the reader to notice first, then make them stand out. High-level items are usually larger, bolder, or different in some way. Remember to keep it simple and stick to just a few complementary styles. Leading is the space between lines of text, also known as line spacing. If you're not sure how much line spacing to use, don't fret. The default is usually fine. The goal is to make your text as comfortable to read as possible. Too much or too little spacing can make things unpleasant for the reader. Tracking is the overall space between characters, sometimes called character spacing. Most programs let you condense or expand this depending on your needs. In some designs, you might adjust your tracking to create a certain artistic effect. It can also help you fix fonts that are poorly spaced to begin with. Kerning is the space between specific characters. Unlike tracking, it varies over the course of the word because each letter fits together differently. Some fonts have what we call bad kerning, making certain letters look improperly spaced. If a font you're using has bad kerning, it's best to cut your losses and choose something else. Well-crafted text can mean the difference between an ordinary project and an extraordinary project, even if you're just getting started with design. All it takes is an interest in typography, and you'll start to notice more, see more, and be able to do more in your own work.
As previously mentioned, designers make use of metaphors, allegory, irony, parody, archetypes, bias, and stereotypes to communicate messages to their audience. Personal identity consider how we express ourselves through aspects of our physicality and culture. In the DKNY advertisement, the personal identity of the female model speaks of the female model embracing her masculine personal identity through the way she dresses, wearing a suit which is usually associated with men, and taking stance while a male model is sitting emphasizes that women can adopt a more masculine role in society. In the Boss advertisement, the personal identity of the male model speaks of the fact that men can embrace a more feminine personal identity through their dress. The color pink is usually associated with femininity, while it is put in contrast with a very geometric building, symbolizing strength and masculinity. A metaphor is the use of an image or something it does not literally denote. The design by United Colors of Benetton uses the repeated image of the heart as a metaphor for impartiality. They are saying that we are all the same no matter what our skin color is. This can also be seen as a commentary on bias and prejudice or stereotyping. Bias is the inclination of or prejudice for or against one person or group, especially in a way considered to be unfair. Stereotypes is an over-generalized belief about a particular category of people. It is an expectation that people might have about every person of a particular group. Stereotypes can be positive or negative. Allegory is a form of extended metaphor. in which objects, persons, and actions in a narrative are equated with a meaning that lie outside the narrative itself. The underlying meaning has moral, social, religious, or political significance. United Colors of Benetton's Unhate campaign makes use of allegory as you see two world leaders kissing. However, the meaning of the image speaks about political significance as it asks world leaders to put their differences aside and unite through acceptance, tolerance, and respect. Irony involves a twist of language, visual or written, often by using the opposite of what is meant. Always makes use of the stereotype that girls are not as good at leading and playing sports like men through their #LikeAGirl advertising campaign. It is ironic that the media and pop culture industries whose bread and butter has rested on making women feel bad about themselves are now not only not insulting them, but even celebrating their strengths and smarts. Therefore, the irony in this ad lies in the fact that a feminine product that often makes women feel embarrassed is showing their strengths. Parodies are harmonious or satirical imitation. The archetype of a cowboy who is seen as a macho man and used to be the symbol of masculinity in cigarette ads are now used in an anti-smoking campaign where his second-hand smoke kills his horse. It is a humorous way to communicate a serious topic. Archetypes are a primitive mental image inherited from the earliest human ancestors and supposed to be present in the collective unconscious.